What we're going to do in this video is take a look at how to graph exponential functions, and it's very similar to most of the techniques we've used already. We're going to look for some shortcuts, but to start off with things, we're just going to pick some values for x and see what sort of outputs we get from this function. And once you start recognizing the patterns, you can make some quick shortcuts and not have to do as many calculations. You sort of get the general idea. So let's start by just putting in a value. Let's begin, say, with 0. It's pretty easy to calculate. So I'm going to take this function right up here and plug in 0 for x. So that's 2 to the 0 power minus 3. And if you remember, anything to the 0 power, anything to the 0 power is equal to 1. So 1 minus 3 would give us negative 2. I'm going to draw a little line here so we don't get these mixed up. Okay, so 0, negative 2 is right down in this area right there. Now let's move on. Let's just try a couple others and see what happens. Let's try 1. 2 to the first power minus 3 is the same as 2 minus 3, which is negative 1. So 1, negative 1 ends up right here. And some people at this point start going, oh, it looks like a straight line. Just hold on a second. Let's wait and get a few more points before you make that judgment. Let's try 2. See where that gets us. 2 to the second power minus 3 is 4 minus 3, which is positive 1. So it's not going to be exactly a straight line. Now we're going to be kind of up in this area somewhere. Starting to curve upward. Let's try one more on the positive side and see where it gets us. Okay, if I put in 3, 2 to the third power minus 3 is 8 minus 3, which would give me 5. So I'm going to be way up here on that one. Okay, notice it's getting big really fast, and that's what an exponential function will do. It'll either get really big or really negative in a hurry. Okay, now let's take a look at the other side. What happens if we go to some negative numbers? Okay, you got to think a little bit about this. 2 to the negative 1 minus 3. Remember, this is not a negative number right here. What that is a fraction. Take its reciprocal. That is 1/2 minus 3. And 1/2 minus 3 is negative 2.5, or 2.5, if you want to write it that way. So we're going to go to negative 2.5, right about in there. What if we put in negative 2? Okay, well, let's do this over here. 2 to the negative 2 minus 3. That is not a negative number. That's 1/4. So it's 1/4 minus 3, which would be negative 2.75, which is going to be somewhere in this area right there, which is kind of tough to draw with what I have. But now you can kind of start to see some sort of pattern emerge here. It looks like we're basically going to have something that sort of starts off low right here and grows quickly. Okay. Now the question is, will this thing ever drop below a certain value? And if you take a look here, we have what's called an asymptote. Okay, horizontal asymptote. And what that means is, no matter what number we put in, we can keep getting negative right here in these values, and it doesn't ever drop below this number, because this value isn't really a negative number. It's a fraction. So we could say in this case, our domain, which remember is our x coordinates, well, x, that could be all real numbers. Okay? That doesn't really matter. See, what we've drawn here is it goes left and right in both directions, and there's nothing really to stop it. Okay? But our range, on the other hand, does have some restrictions. This is our y coordinates. Okay, in this case, we basically don't have a y value anywhere down here. The graph just doesn't exist. So we would say y has got to be bigger than negative 3.